the two ministers that are responsible for young carers, one is Department of Health Minister, the other is Department for Education. Can I just ask you, first of all, if you were able to be sitting in the same room as the Care Services Minister from the Department of Health, the Right Honourable Alistair Burt MP, what would you want to say to him?
I'd want him, or possibly if it was ever her, or them to actually speak to us instead of going through workers, you know, a manager to a worker. Actually go to the problem and speak to the people. As I said, we've all got different views, where I would have different views to someone that would be raised differently but still a young carer. I will always have that different and sensitive where I've grown up, and I'd want them to actually know we are important, and you know, you're getting paid for your job. You should actually be doing more than just reading a form of this person wants to go with this person, whereas that's all they're doing. And is that kind of, I really want to see an actual, someone that had been a young carer be in these set of jobs so they can put their point across, or someone that's still a young carer, because then they'd understand that, you know, they have that incentive, that motherly role that we want, whereas not just someone that's thinking, oh, I get a high pay at the end of the year, I get this at the end of the month, where, you know, that's not going to make a chance to our lives. They should be thinking, well, I'm getting paid for this. This must mean not just because I've gone into this line of work, I want to go into this line of work. And that must mean they're not, because if they were, then they should be doing something by now.
The Department of Health has published the Carers Consultation Strategy. You've had a go at filling in the form. What are your thoughts on it?
Diabolical. I didn't hardly understand certain things. It was too long, and as I say, if I was now at home and I was trying to do that certain survey, I would find it very hard because I wouldn't have the time to fill it out. I wouldn't think to myself, oh, let's look on the government or somewhere like that to see if they're now doing a survey for these certain things. I wouldn't think of that, and even if I did, as I said, the questions that were on there were what they wanted to hear, the answers that we could only put that they want to hear, that they already know, not what they should be looking at, and not what, like I said, an individual. It's not just a wide range, it's looking at certain people and the way we need help and asking us, because it means more. As I say, for someone to come up to you and say, what do you think? How are you today? Rather than, I'll fill out this form and then possibly one day something might change, because I don't see no improvements. There's no development within, doing a survey that's now going to be put into a tally chart or a bar chart or something like that that's going to read it, where they're not going to actually read the answers, they're going to read the outcome of the things, which is hard because, you know, you want to say so much, but you know your actual writing answers aren't going to be that. I'd rather have someone send me a piece of paper even than, you know, send me a form, because then I can say what I want, I can include what I want, and they've got to read it. They can't just put a scanner across it and get it up onto a statistics that aren't going to matter to us.
So it's not really giving you the opportunity to say what's real.
Yeah, we're not having, well, I have the chance to say, oh, you can write it down, but like I said, there used to be the fact of people saying children should be seen, not heard, whereas I think that's totally wrong. We should be both, and in reality, we should be heard a lot more than the adults, because we are the generation. We were going to be the ones to take over one day. We're going to be the ones to be in these line of jobs, the ones that are prime ministers, the ones that are, you know, coming to MPs. We need to acknowledge it now, because if not, our generations are just going to get worse, and it's showing because, you know, as I said, you're not growing up nowadays learning that punishment's wrong. You're getting learned up as, you know, you're bad. You're now getting attention. If you're good, then you'll get praised up. But if you're struggling and you just don't know who to go to, you're ignored, and that's wrong, because sometimes they're the kids with the most potential and the ones that actually want to do something.
In terms of departments, there's a second minister, the Department for Education and Minister for Children and Families, the Right Honourable Edward Timpson MP. His responsibility obviously includes the schooling element. What would you say to him?
Well, this is the part where it's, you know, they try to get these schools up for inspection of Oxford, but Oxford and Ofsted, they're looking at the schools, they're not looking at the pupils. Whereas in previous, I've been pushed into a classroom when an Ofsted worker was walking down because they didn't want to see the state I was actually in. And I wasn't allowed, so they said to me to stay in there until the Ofsted worker had gone out. So it was, they're hiding it, they're hiding these children where, you know, if I could then speak to someone and say, this is the problem with the school, you get bullied, there's problems with even understanding that with attendance, you know. I explained that I was a young carer, I was going through bullying, I'd have a personal circumstance that I was going through at school, and their solution to it was, oh, if you don't come into school, then we're taking your mum to court. My mum had mental health, they're not looking at, it's affecting people. Then I was moved schools, well, I did go to school for 7 months, moved schools and dropped the year to no one I actually knew, and actually was told to not tell them my real age because they didn't want me to be bullied. But that was hard because, from, as I say, from my experiences, I've grown up a lot. I would never get on with younger children. I would never be able to socialise. There was always going to be a difference. So they didn't put me into this perspective of, oh yeah, you're a different person, we need to look at to help you before you go into this. It's, you're putting straight into this. And the schools need to actually sort themselves out and realise that we're not just children, we're their generation, we're their children. We are growing up, and as I say, we are going to be the people that mess up this world if something's not sorted, because there's going to be a lot more crime, there's going to be a lot more bullying in the schools and a lot more problems, which will be a lot more money. So if they focus actual things on the people instead of the buildings and things like that, then we'd actually get somewhere.
Now, I don't know whether this is something you know about, so I'll just ask the question anyway. There's been a lot of talk in the press lately about the government's plans to change all schools into academies, so effectively take them out of control of local authorities. Given the experiences you've had, do you believe that's likely to be better, worse, the same, or what ingredient is important to that process to make a difference?
Possibly worse, because school hours are different, and as they say, you have to stay to education of 18, and the fact of as well, I've got no GCSEs. I never made it to even my mocks, and never made it to year 11. And you go to college, you're not allowed to even go back onto the same courses. So I will never have that chance. I will grow to 60, 70 and probably never have a GCSE in my life, which upsets me because schools aren't focusing on this, and even academies. They're, you know, as I say, you wear a blazer, you wear things like that. Children are still going to get bullied. Whereas problems with school uniforms, people say, you know, don't have school non-uniform days because kids get bullied that some have nicer clothes and some don't. But then if you wear a uniform, you can still look scruffy in a uniform. You can still look scruffy in no matter what, and they're trying to dress us into something they're not. You don't, you know, I read something online that said that English kids are the most depressed out of the majority of the world, whereas Americans have, you know, no uniforms, they kind of grow up, you know, driving, and you can vote at 18 here, but yet you have to pay taxes at 16. We're doing the same things as everyone else is, but we're still not getting the same opportunities to progress in certain things. So give us a chance to kind of grow up and to be immature and do these things before we have all this pressure of GCSEs, exams, because it's not helping anyone. I mean, personally, I had a friend that committed suicide when I was, well, 15 and he was 15 because of bullying. And yet that upset me because no one was there for him. The school knew he was getting bullied, but yet nothing was done. And that's a life taken, and think of how many lives there is in this world that will be taken because of the pressure. Whereas they're not, you know, giving us time to speak, not giving us time to think. It's just done, and that's, you know, as they say, your GCSEs is what your life's going to be. It's going to make you, but it's not. It's personal experiences that make you who you are in your later life. You could get A's and B's and turn up with nothing. You need personal experience, not knowledge. So it's difficult to put that into words, and as I say, put it into writing, you can't.
And finally, is there anything else that you'd like to say at this stage about anything?
I'd like a lot of people to understand that because you've got a mental health or a disability, it doesn't mean you're not a young carer. Because of one of your parents passing, or because you're not into a certain circumstance, or even a brother or sister, you're still a young carer. There is people you can speak to. You haven't got to be ashamed. You haven't got to feel lonely, because we may all look different, and there's people that I've socialised with in certain groups that possibly would have bullied me, or I wouldn't have been able to speak to, and now some of my closest friends, because we are young carers, we are, you know, loving and people that just want to be heard, and that's something we've never had before. Whereas, you know, children with ADHD, there's a lot of people that can, based on that depression, you've got tablets, but tablets aren't the answer. Speaking is. Therapy, 6 weeks and things like that. You can't get what you have to say in that. And then even then you might not get on with your worker, you might not be able to know what to say, and then even if you do, they're going to put it on a form. They're not going to go say to someone, this is urgent, you need to sort it out. It's on a form, you have to wait for it. So people need to understand the differences between what should be going on and what's going on, because as I say, we are the future, and there will be no future unless people start doing something now.
Thank you very much.